Top leaders from Korn Ferry who've gone through some unusual experiences.
We could actually see the avalanche fall and take out our tents.
We hit turbulence. Anything on your tray table was floating.
First thing I remember was hearing this sickening suction sound.
Quicksand! Allowing yourself to say, you know what, I'm not the best at this.
And understanding your own energy levels.
You gotta move forward and accept that you're gonna make mistakes.
Leadership lessons from nowhere. Hi, I'm Jill Wiltfong, Chief Marketing Officer for Korn Ferry, and this is Briefings, our deep dive into topics that corporate leaders need to care about. Have you ever been trapped in quicksand? Yes, actual quicksand, and stuck knee-deep in the ground with nobody around for miles? Or how about having to rescue fellow mountaineers after a Himalayan avalanche, or offering courage to a fellow traveler during a terrifying moment of plane turbulence? Well, we've got some special guests today, top leaders from Korn Ferry who've gone through some pretty unusual experiences. But here's what's even more unusual. They say these moments that might come out of a movie script actually shaped their view toward corporate leadership and how to handle pressure. After all, studies show that about 1/3 of leaders can't handle high stakes and high pressure situations. And that's happening at a time when, frankly, high pressure from global events and AI make these tense moments seem practically common. But you can't learn this in business school, so let's take a look at leadership lessons from nowhere. Before we start, if you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts on this topic. I'm joined now by Esther Caldwell, President of Korn Ferry in Asia Pacific, Radhika Papandreou, Korn Ferry's President in North America, and Jonathan Dahl, Korn Ferry's Chief Content Officer. They're all seasoned leaders, and they've got some gripping stories to tell with life-changing insights that came from each of them. So I'm really excited to have all of you with me today. It's some pretty remarkable stuff.
Great to be here.
Esther, I want to get right into these stories, and I want to start with you. You are part of a very exclusive club, one of fewer than 500 people. Is that right? 500 people who've scaled the 7 highest summits of the world. Just to put that into perspective, how many feet, Esther, was the tallest mountain you climbed?
If you work in feet, it's just over 29,000 feet.
Okay, so let's bring that into the corporate world. It's pretty phenomenal that you were able to accomplish that. You've also said one of the parallels between mountaineering and the pressures you face as a leader comes down to discipline. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, so I think there's 2 different kinds of discipline. There's the preparation discipline, and then there's the in-the-moment discipline. So preparation might be kind of obvious. You got to know the route. You got to know where the detours might be if something happens. You've got to know all of that detail. Just like in the corporate world, when you're preparing for a board meeting, but frankly, also when you're just preparing for meetings with colleagues that are tough conversations, it really changes how you show up if you spend that extra time to prepare. And then I would say that in the moment discipline is a little bit like you talked about in that pressure when something happens and you've got to make a decision.
Interesting. So you've talked about discipline. You've also talked a lot about anticipation of things. So I know when you tried to summit Denali in Alaska, it was 3 times that you tried that before you actually succeeded. And one of those failed times came down to your group leader not adequately anticipating the physical needs of one of your members. What happened on that day, and what did that teach you about leadership?
You have to carry a lot of weight through the expedition. You've got a 60-pound pack, you're dragging a sled behind you. It's probably physically the hardest out of all of those expeditions. Actually, it was one of my earlier expeditions as a younger climber. We had a team of 8. We were setting off, all excited, beautiful Alaska day. And very quickly, it became clear that a couple of the climbers didn't have the strength and experience to carry the weight and to handle the conditions. They were very outspoken. They really wanted to climb. They didn't want to give up. And so the leader said, well, look, let's take some of their weight and spread it across the other team members. So the rest of us physically got extra weight to carry. And as you can imagine, predictably ahead, a couple of days later, the rest of us were more fatigued and more tired, and the two really still couldn't make it. And so very soon we started running out of supplies. We were too tired. We got delayed and we had to turn around and go back down. So it's a very real memory to me about making sure that you listen to the quiet voices that you might accidentally overload, and be careful not to listen to the louder voices, and really understand, are these team members going to make it? Do they have the capability and competence? And it's not necessarily fair on them to keep them, and it certainly isn't on the others too.
Radhika, Jonathan, what do you think? Either of you feel encouraged to take up mountaineering as a hobby based on all of that?
No, I'm afraid of heights. So all power to you, Esther.
Yes, I will root Esther on. How's
Yeah,
that?
exactly. That's how I feel. I'm in the same boat. Esther, there's of course the harrowing story of an avalanche rescue where you had to perform that while climbing the Himalayas, a different expedition there. And even after that, you decided to continue your journey up the mountain. So we've talked about the hard part and the hard decision to turn back. This was a decision to decide to stay and keep going. Talk a little bit about that and how that was a different decision to keep going, and how you made that call and what you learned from that experience.
This was an Everest moment, and I would say team of 12, expedition going well. We'd made it up the different acclimatization camps to Camp 3, coming back down for a rest, really feeling pretty good about ourselves. And as we were coming down, we could actually see the avalanche fall and take out our tents in Camp 1 that we had left behind to stay in. But then, of course, there were others on the mountain at Camp 1 as well. Thankfully, most were okay, but a lot of injuries. So instead of a beautiful walk back down to our base camp, it was a long day of rescue, a long day of trying to take these mountaineers through the complicated ice fall. After that, it really did shake the team, and several members went home and made a choice to go back home. Yes, myself and 6 others decided to stay. We rested properly. We looked at the weather. We looked at everything. We intellectualized it as much as we possibly could imagine. And it said the risk was still the same. And I wasn't ready to give up on it. I really wasn't. So we stayed. But I think it's one of those very personal decisions. Risk is real in all of our lives, and how we look at it and whether we really evaluate it. In some ways, when you're capable and you've thought it through and you're ready, it's less risky than impulsive decisions. It's less risky than, taking a fast merge on the LA freeways.
Hey, Charlie, let me ask you something. What is it that's not exactly water, and it ain't exactly earth? Quicksand!
That's a scene from the movie Blazing Saddles where 2 men get caught in quicksand. That's something, Jonathan, you've recently had firsthand experience with, and you even wrote about it in the Briefings magazine, which was actually a bit of a nail-biter, I must say, even though I know you made it out okay. Still a very compelling read. So set the stage for us. Where were you, and what led you into that really terrifying situation?
Well, my girlfriend and I were on a vacation in beautiful Key West. We did the thing you do in Key West, and that is hike near the water. And I saw this beautiful path leading to an even more beautiful ocean. And I said, that's great. Let's just go there. And the first thing I remember was hearing this sickening suction sound, and suddenly felt this pull and just yelled out, quicksand. And before I knew, we were both up to our calves in it. And it's true what they say. The more you fight quicksand, the harder it is to get out. And I remember thinking at the time that we hadn't seen anybody in that park for a whole hour of hiking so far, and this was crocodile land. So I was a little nervous.
Yeah. So you wrote that this experience made you reflect on the notion that leaders also sometimes need to take risks, but that they should do so with caution. So unpack for all of us a little bit how being stuck in quicksand led to that revelation, and talk a little bit about your mindset in that time.
Well, we've been writing a lot about in Korn Ferry about how corporate growth just isn't what it used to be. And it was a little better this year, but pretty much it's been a real battle. And I think one of the big reasons is because leaders are afraid to take risks. There are just too many forces that are challenging and questioning them. But you need to take risks, measured, as Esther said, really to get ahead. That was one of the things that came away with it, that this was, it made sense to go on a hike, but to accept, and that has some risk to it, but not to not do it, just to do it more wisely.
Yeah. You've mentioned that oddly you first felt foolish being stuck there, and then you later kind of realized that leaders make mistakes too. What was the mistake you made here, and how do you translate that to your own experiences in business?
Well, I went home and I looked up hiking in Key West, and of course the very first thing it said was that you can get caught in quicksand. It's really common down there. And that's a good example of kind of like the mistake I'm making is going into an area I haven't been into, which same thing happen in the corporate world, without kind of studying it in advance. But I think you need kind of like an acceptance. I've made so many mistakes.
No, I don't know any of them. What do you mean?
You're the first to call me on them. If I pick up the New York Times, I always see the byline of the guy I didn't hire who's already won one Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
You got to move forward and accept that you're going to make mistakes along the way.
Before you tell us how you got out of that situation, I do want to check in with Radhika and Esther. If either of you got caught in quicksand, what strategy would you use to get out?
I would tell you my gut says do what Jonathan did and stay calm and try not to fight it. But I don't know if I have that much faith in myself that I would do that. So kudos to Jonathan.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like, I'm sure the instinct would be to fight rather than stay calm. So it would be hard. Well done.
Yeah, I do want to know, Jonathan, how do you get out? What did you do?
I don't know why, but I did finally calm down, and you both make a very good point. And once I did, it was kind of easy to realize, well, instead of pulling, if I just dug with my bare hands the sand out, the mud out, I could get out. Of course, it ruined my sneakers.
Your manicure that day?
Yeah. Manicure, yeah, it was pretty bad. Ever since then, I've really admired a lot of pressure situations, and it's always the great leader is the one you notice that, like you, Jill, they're very calm.
Can't stand it anymore. I've got to get out of here.
That's a scene from the comedy movie Airplane where an airline passenger gets gripped with fear after some turbulence. Radhika, you were actually in a real life version of this when you were on a plane and a passenger next to you was similarly stricken with terror, which is real for a lot of people. Talk me through why the passenger was so scared. So kind of set the scene for us and talk us through what you did.
I was on a flight where we hit turbulence, but it was the kind that wasn't just bumpy. We hit almost an air pocket, and it was suspended animation on the flight. Anything on your tray table was floating for a couple seconds. And then we kind of came back down. And I had a passenger next to me, and she was extremely, extremely scared, had a panic attack. I also don't love flying, even though I do it a lot. But I could see that she was in distress. I was also very nervous. But in that moment, I knew she needed more than I did. And so I held her hand. I told her we were going to be okay. And then I sought help. And it was really interesting. There was actually a pilot with an iPad sitting in front of us, looking at the weather patterns and seeing what was going on. And I solicited his help to help calm her down. So it was really knowing when I wasn't the expert in something to really get help. And we stayed with her and talked to her until she kind of started breathing okay again.
What did you learn from that you kind of take forward as you lead teams day to day?
A couple of things in leadership, as I think about myself as a leader, right? I was also very terrified about with that happening, but my reaction was less severe than hers. So really trying to put my own emotions aside to be able to be there for others. And I think as leaders in an organization, you just have to do that. A great example, if I think about 6 years back with COVID, the leaders that we spoke to didn't know anything more than we knew or their people knew. but they had to show that resilience, right? And show that we've got this, even though they were also scared of the unknown. And so I took that as a lesson. The other lesson is it doesn't matter how much I fly. I could fly 8 times a week or 10 times a week. I'm still just a passenger. So being able to really identify somebody who had the expertise that I do not have, which is flying aircraft. And as we think about leadership and we advise our clients, it's really making sure that you have the subject matter experts around you to help you, because you're not going to be the expert in everything. You just can't be. And so identifying that talent to surround yourself with in order to get things done is extremely important. And allowing yourself to say, you know what, I'm not the best at this. There are other people that know more than me is a trait that I think is extremely important for leaders in this day and age.
I agree. I do want to end on one more story from your teen years, Radhika, where you spent all night waiting in line for a Peter Gabriel concert. A mandatory pause right here for a quick 80s culture pop quiz. Jonathan and Esther, can you name one song by Peter Gabriel each? It's for all the
In your eyes. Remember?
In your eyes.
Remember to say anything movie, John Cusack, he holds up.
I like it. Do you know a second one?
No, remind me. Remind us.
Probably the most popular is Sledgehammer.
Oh, gosh. There we go. Right. Of course, okay. Radhika probably has them all. She's got them all. She was there. She was there. All right, Radhika, back to you. So you're waiting in line all night, and then the doors open and chaos ensues, right? All these people start rushing in. That can actually be quite scary and quite dangerous. You're in the middle of all of that. So talk a little bit about what happened there.
Absolutely. And before I jump into the story, just for our listeners that were born after the 1990s, we used to have to wait in line and get paper tickets for concerts. And so I grew up in Rochester, New York. We were in Rochester, New York, waiting in line all night for the doors to open for the ticket counter. And people ran in, and it wasn't sort of a violent situation by any stretch of the imagination, but people were just anxious to get their tickets. And I walked into chaos, and I wasn't the oldest person in the room, and I had no authority. I was probably 17 at the time. It was between my junior and senior year of high school. But I just calmly said, how about let's get organized? And I worked with other people in the room to create a line when there was no line, create a system where people could go up to the counter one by one or group by group and get their tickets, and everyone was going to get their tickets. And so I surprised myself, I would say, that morning after waiting all night, that I took charge of a room of strangers in a very natural way. And I tell that story because it was the first time that I self-reflected and thought, there's something here around being able to lead people and really inspire people. And so it's sort of manifested throughout my career. I tell that story all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a great lesson, right? You may not be the anointed leader, but there are opportunities to lead in all sorts of situations, right? And there, I think you saw a problem and you solved it.
Yeah.
You really wanted that ticket.
I did. I wanted everybody to be safe, everybody to go to the concert, and I wanted my own ticket. And
that's right.
Accomplished all of those things.
I love it. Well, I mean, you hear a lot of common themes, right? We heard anticipate, do your research, do your homework, stay calm, lead. When you see a need for people to be led, like step up, right? And take charge. Any other lessons you guys have heard here as we've all kind of reflected? What are you taking away from this conversation?
I think what I come away is that how much real life translates into the corporate and leadership world. You don't think it does. You think, oh, that's one part of my life. Here's the other. And you do want to keep them separate at times. But the truth is, you can learn a lot from the corporate world in your private life. And your private life can teach you a lot about the corporate world.
And I kind of like that with your two stories, that some of these things just happen in extraordinary circumstances, and some just happen in the normal course of life and day to day. And, you're right, we're lucky, we fly a lot in our profession, and sometimes we forget and we don't think about it. And then suddenly the reality of us humans and our vulnerability becomes very, very real.
Radhika, Esther, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your stories and what you learned from them. I think it is true. We have all learned something, and I think there are leadership lessons in life in all of our day-to-day that we should listen for and learn from. It's a good thought. Thank you for being here. Up next, stick around for This Week in Leadership.
Hi, and welcome to This Week in Leadership. I'm Rupak Bhattacharya, and here's a quick look at what else is happening in business.
What is a chief of staff?
Chief of staff roles are booming. Job postings doubled last year, and the number of executives with the title has tripled since 2021. You'd think AI's ability to handle administrative work means fewer people would be needed in this role. But experts say the title's resurgence reflects how the chief of staff has morphed into a key ally and strategy aid for high-level leaders.
GLP-1 is a very interesting molecule that does some very interesting stuff.
Some employers are rethinking coverage for GLP-1 weight loss drugs. 10% of companies that currently cover the medications plan to drop that benefit next year as costs continue to climb. However, healthcare thought leaders say eliminating coverage altogether may be short-sighted, recommending instead that companies tighten eligibility while clearly communicating any changes well in advance.
Venturing into the misty realms of situationship.
More employees are feeling uncertain about their future at work. Nearly 60% don't see a clear long-term path with their current employer, while 63% aren't convinced their employer is committed to keeping them. Experts say the way forward involves managers communicating more openly about growth opportunities, while employees actively seek out new challenges and learning experiences within their firms. For more insights from This Week in Leadership, head to kornferry.com/insights. Thanks for watching.
The executive producer of Briefings is Jonathan Dahl. Today's episode was produced by Rupak Bhattacharya and Zachary Dorr, and it was edited by Jaron Henry McRae. It contains reporting by Russell Perlman, Ariane Cohen, and Peter Loria. Our video segment contains original artwork by Fraser Milton, Haley Kennel, Jonathan Pink, and Sasha Kotschik. And our web operations are managed by Ed McLaurin. Don't forget to read our magazine, available at newsstands and at kornferry.com/briefings. That's it for Korn Ferry Briefings. I'm Jill Wiltfong. See you next time.
I just do want to say for the record, Joe, I never thought, wait, let me say that better. Joe, I never thought you'd have me on your show. I didn't know it would take so long.
We fought it. We fought it for a long time.